In recent years, you've probably heard the terms misinformation and disinformation.
There's a preliminary investigation taking place, and we don't want to give out any misinformation. We want to be extremely thorough and thoughtful on the information we give out.
But really, what is misinformation and disinformation? How do the terms differ? Misinformation refers to false information, regardless of whether or not it's intended to mislead or deceive people. Disinformation, on the other hand, refers to false information that spreads with the specific intent of misleading or deceiving people. Recently, mis- and disinformation have become a growing concern for politicians, journalists, and the public.
The problem of fake news and misinformation and disinformation is not a new phenomenon. It's been there for many years. I think that the main problem that we see right now is the fact that social media has created the spread of misinformation and disinformation at a very different scale, at a very a total different magnitude.
In his 2016 presidential campaign, Donald Trump heavily used the term to criticize the media.
Since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give
is
us a
terrible.
chance?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No,
give
I'm not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state
We record when we deal with reporters. It's called fake news.
The term then migrated to Europe, and rather than reject the term, some European Union policymakers introduced legislation to restrict fake news. In early 2017, the Italian Parliament proposed a bill that would criminalize the spread of false, exaggerated, or biased news reports online. The European Parliament also called for a resolution that would allow the European Commission to analyze the legal framework on fake news and consider the possibility of legislative intervention to limit the dissemination and spreading of fake content.
Unlike European countries, the U.S. pushed for tech giants like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to regulate themselves to avoid First Amendment violations.
In England, they have something called IPSO, and it's a government regulatory body that regulates misinformation and disinformation, not defamation, but things that don't harm an individual and yet are corrosive to society. The principle here in the United States is that we, like separation of church and state, we really want to separate government from the press. The press is considered to be the fourth branch of government, and their whole role is to be a watchdog with the minimum of government oversight and interference. So it is a self-regulating sort of code of ethics in America.
However, the public doesn't necessarily agree with the approaches of the U.S. government. A 2021 survey conducted by Pew Research revealed roughly half of U.S. adults, 48%, say the government should take steps to restrict false information, even if it means losing some freedom to access and publish content.
But is it journalists that spread misinformation? The U.S. might not have legislation punishing journalists who report fake news, but the industry highly values honest reporting. The Society of Professional Journalists follow a code of ethics in which advocates for journalists to 1. Seek the truth and report it, 2. Be accurate and fair, 3. Be honest and courageous in gathering, reporting, and interpreting information, 4. Minimize harm, and 5. Be accountable and transparent, and many more. So if a journalist does spread misinformation or disinformation, legally, they won't get in trouble, but they are violating ethics. Journalists could potentially lose their job or gain a bad reputation in the industry.
Well, I mean, I think journalists need to be given the benefit of the doubt. The point about it is journalists do a difficult job these days. They're getting bombarded by information from all sorts of corners and so on. And sometimes information is going to get through, which journalists are, maybe they shouldn't report, but for various reasons, they end up reporting. I'll give you an example. The journalists live in a very congested and competitive information market. There's a lot of people trying to get information out there as quickly as possible. So sometimes journalists work too quickly. They move too fast. And that's not a good thing. I'm always saying to journalists, don't worry about not being the first with a story. Be the person who has got the story that is right.
A recent Gallup survey revealed that the percentage of Americans with no trust in the mass media hit a record high in 2020. Only 9% of respondents said that they trust the mass media a great deal, and a full 60% said that they have little to no trust at all in it.
Today's consumers' inability to trust the news media has caused many journalists to be wary of spreading any inaccurate information and exposing any misinformation on the internet. It's unlikely the U.S. will follow the footsteps of European countries censoring or punishing journalists because of the First Amendment. As the issue continues to grow, many are left to wonder how to balance effective control of misinformation while protecting individual liberties.